everyone, and welcome back to NWR TV. My name is Xander Morningstar, and today we have a very special guest with us to talk about Paper Mario: The Origami King. André from GameXplain is here. Hello, André.
Hey, what's up?
I'm very good. How are you?
I am folded up right now.
You're folded up right now. Why are you folded up?
I don't know. I haven't slept. I don't know what's happening.
Yeah, André, you stayed up pretty late to work on the coverage for this game, so...
Yep.
Yeah.
5 a.m. Got 2 hours of sleep, baby.
All right, well, we won't keep this too long, so that way you can get back to bed. You can fold up with a nice blanket.
No, I'm the kind of person, like, once I'm up, so...
Gotcha.
I'll just stick around until sometime tonight.
So, over at GameXplain, André and I recorded a post-review discussion that you can check out. I'll put the link in the description. But today we're going to go ahead and talk about a little more flexible of a conversation. We're going to talk about the Origami King in its relation to other games in the series, particularly Color Splash and The Thousand Year Door. And then also we want to talk a little bit about where we think the series can go from here, because, you know, Paper Mario is a very experimental series, and speculation is something we really enjoy doing, so we're going to go ahead and talk about that. So, André, you've played all the Paper Mario games, right?
Yeah, I've played every one, except unless you count Paper Jam, but...
Yeah, I never played Paper Jam myself, and that one doesn't really count.
It doesn't.
So with the Origami King being so close to Color Splash, but also trying to implement some RPG mechanics from like the older Paper Mario games, do you like that inclusion, or do you think that they should nix that and try to pick one thing going forward, or should they keep advancing with it? Where do you think the series should go from here?
Yeah, it's a little weird because it almost seems a little confused as to what it wants to be, because this game does evoke Thousand Year Door between the partner characters, the single interconnected world, and the fact that the battle system in some respects is a return to how it used to, and that you no longer have a depletable inventory of items. You now have these core attacks. So those are all, like, you know, I think to some would be positive moves, but the problem is they don't go quite far enough with them to, you know, capture the essence of Thousand Year Door, which people want, or a lot of people want, I should say. And in doing so, they kind of stepped away from what I thought Color Splash did really well, which is have just like almost a breakneck pace, at least comparatively. We're seeing new things constantly, you're always in new settings, whereas that's definitely slowed down in this game, where, you know, it's you're in this, you know, interconnected world, so you're in a single region for longer periods of time in general. So I don't know if I want to say, like, I like this game. I thought it was good, but also has issues, and I was very mixed on it up until the ending. So I kind of wish, like, this isn't the direction I would have thought they'd go in immediately after Color Splash. Actually, I kind of take that back. In some ways it is. They just didn't go far enough with it. So I almost wish they had kind of like better embraced what Color Splash did well and leaned more into that. And I think what might have been fun had they basically kept Color Splash's structure, just ditch the RPG elements, and make it so the battles were more of a real-time thing. And they kind of touched on that to some degree in Origami King, where you had these papier-mâché battles that are in real time in the real world. I think had they gone that route, that could have really worked.
They have these very big environments in the game,
yeah,
similar to Super Paper Mario. Like that's a very big space for you to be doing that. It's weird that that's not the focus at all.
Right. I mean, they could have even kept like some of the light RPG elements, like in Color Splash, or sorry, in Origami King, their health is largely dictated by the stickers on their body. But you can give them like a health meter if you want, you make it feel a little bit more like an RPG. Kind of like how I think Super Paper Mario handled it. And yeah, I think just go all in on the action-adventure angle while being able to retain the puzzle aspects that they'd love to incorporate, you know? So I think that might have been maybe a better angle for them to explore, rather than kind of trying to half-heartedly ape Thousand Year Door.
Yeah, when I read the comments, which, you know, you never should do, but I always see that people are like, oh, no EXP, like, I'm gonna pass on this because
yep.
Yeah, it's not an RPG, and it's not what I'm here for. And it's like, if you like only want to play an RPG, I can understand that sentiment. Like that's not for you.
Yeah.
But if it's something that's like I only liked Paper Mario because it was an RPG, and you're not really open to the experimentation, I can't really get behind that because I'm all for experimentation. I've liked that they have been trying these new things. It's just I think I recognize that I think the RPG system that they had in the original and the Thousand Year Door worked the best, and so to not have something that has lived up to that, or lived up to that, I don't think that has resonated with people just because they liked that system more. You could do this puzzle mechanic, and I think it could work fine. You know, one of the ideas I was talking to you about was I think it would have been neat if like they almost had like a Professor Layton-esque way of doing this, where you had a bunch of puzzles rather than like just you could fight the same Goomba several times if you were to like retraverse through an area, whereas in my like idea, you know, you would just have like a list of puzzles per region, and then that's how that difficulty can increase. Because I found that like through the majority of the game, a lot of the puzzles were kind of samey. They definitely get harder with more of the scripted battles, but I thought like, you know, okay, it's in World 4 now, and I'm still seeing like slide the Goomba up 1, rotate it over 2, you know. Whereas if they had like this list of puzzles in a way, that might not gel with people who like are coming to Paper Mario for that, but I think the game would benefit from that a little bit more.
Yeah, I think you're touching on a few things there. I think modern Paper Mario's biggest problem is that it's a sequel to two classic RPGs. So people are just unwilling to look past that, and what the games end up as are not aligned with a lot of people's expectations. And I said in my review, I don't think experience points are fundamental or critical, I should say, to the Paper Mario experience. I think you can make a great Paper Mario game without experience points. Arguably, they did, in my opinion, with Color Splash, even if I can see the battles weren't great, but I love the game otherwise, or really enjoy the game otherwise. But yeah, I mean, I think, I kind of lost my train of thought with that, but yeah, kind of, I also want to touch on, yeah, you were talking about the battles. I think part of the issue too, because the battles do feel like a little samey in Origami King, especially with how many of them are, and I think there's even more potential with what they could have done, because the goal is always the same. It's just rearrange enemies to be in lines or groups of 4, that's it. When I think they could have introduced different objectives, like, hey, we have green and red enemies. Group the green ones together and the red ones together, right? Or have different types of enemies, or I don't know. I mean, there's any number of things they could have done to kind of like mix up the combat. You know, they could have almost made it feel a little bit more like a conventional puzzle game in some ways. And I almost wonder they should have done that. Like, instead of having the proper attack phase that they do here, where you line them up, then you attack, make it so, I don't know, the attacks are automatically handled by, Olivia or something, or that, like, if you line everyone up, the field folds on itself and just crushes the enemies or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Something to put the focus more clearly on the fact that this isn't an RPG, really. This is primarily an action-adventure puzzler.
Right. If you wanted to even streamline it, you know, I don't think the portion after the puzzle is even necessary, you know, because there's no strategy.
There's none.
It feels like doing the action commands, picking your weapon, like that just all feels extra. Maybe just like once you've lined them up, then they're dead, you know, like, or if they're stronger enemies, you got to do like a harder version of the puzzle. Like that's another way you could add difficulty to it.
There is something funny or maybe ironic about the fact that they finally get a slight, in some ways, a return to how the battles used to work, in that you no longer have a fully depletable inventory of one-use items, but they then wrap it up within a combat system that doesn't take advantage of that fact, you know?
It's poetry, right?
Yeah, it really is. Yeah, it rhymes.
Right. I'm not gonna like compare the weapons to the stickers or the cards because they're not the same thing. You know, the battling is just like fundamentally different. But that said, you know, it's like, again, as long as you have them, you're good to go, right? You don't need to really think about it, and I think that's kind of a similar situation to the other games with the cards. You know, as long as you have enough, you're good to go. There's no like magic meter or anything like that. But when it comes to like evolving like this puzzle system, because I don't think we've seen the last of this. I think we're probably going to see another puzzle based game in the future. I'd have nothing to base that on other than like they like to do this thing twice in a row.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But like if they were to try this again and then try to put another spin on it, I think it would be kind of neat if like you did have multiple characters that could attack, because that would increase the amount of strategy that you could have with these enemies on the field, and it could make the puzzles a little more complex. Like you could have Mario taking out one enemy, or like a group of enemies, or maybe like setting up a character to be able to do other attacks on the field that they would need to do otherwise, or maybe you even have a partner on the field that you have to move around or slide around to reach another group of enemies. Like, I just think that there's a lot more availability there in the concept.
I think you're actually kind of touching on what could be an awesome idea, also possibly a terrible one. I had mentioned before that like the boss battles in this game feel a little bit like a board game to me. Why don't they just like went all in on that? Every battle is like a board game where you can have your RNG with like a literal dice roll, and like you can kind of maneuver your person around this board, which affects your range. Like you need to go within range of an enemy, and if your jumps that have a longer range, maybe they be weaker. If you get up closer, you can use the more powerful hammer attack, but you're left vulnerable to counter attack as well. So this could, and you have that partner character, as well, that could, I don't know, I feel like I'm kind of loving this idea. Like, I'll make this game now.
Right, yeah, it's like, I don't know, you have a Yoshi, and you move Yoshi around on the board, and Yoshi can reach, he can use his tongue to reach ahead 2 spaces to grab something, and then he can, like, eat it, turn it into an egg, and then it's behind him. Just little things like that to, like, add to the strategy, because it would, like, let you move an enemy closer to another character. I don't know, I just think that this game presents a very cool concept, and I think it delivers on it. I just think that there's still untapped potential that they could do with it.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. I think there's some cool ideas here, but most of them aren't just executed at a level that we've seen before in the Paper Mario series. And that's kind of my problem. Like, this game does a lot of things. It does a lot of things pretty well, but it doesn't do like most of the things it does aren't great. Aside from the soundtrack. The soundtrack's amazing, as well as the final portion of the game, which I really enjoy.
Yes.
But yeah, the weird thing is, like, right now it feels like like they just took like a lot of Paper Mario elements, threw them into a bag together, shook it up a bunch, and just dumped it on the table, while also throwing in the new ring-based battle system. So
yes.
Yeah, I guess in some ways I'm more curious now to see than I was for Origami King to see. Well, no, that's not true. I am curious to see where they go with it, period, because I don't know where they're gonna go with it. They always go in some different direction. I guess Color Splash has been the most conventional sequel, if you will, even though I think it was leaps and bounds ahead of what Sticker Star was. But they learned from what Sticker Star wasn't and improved it, even if it wasn't perfect. But then they've kind of like taken a side road with Origami King, and now I'm not quite sure where they're going. Like, will they continue on this trajectory? Will they kind of like pull back and return to what what Color Splash was, or will they hit reset entirely and do something else?
Yeah, I'm wondering if like they think that whatever the next Paper Mario game is, like, I don't think that they're basing it around the paper gimmick. I know a lot of people like say that they end up like using that gimmick. Like, Origami King is all about origami, but like the idea of that game started with this ring-based system. By and large, Color Splash is very similar to Sticker Star, but for some reason they went with cards, and a lot of people point to the untapped potential of like building decks with those cards, but instead they were focusing on painting them, and so then suddenly
I was so excited for the deck idea. That sounded so cool.
I know.
Analysis.
They never did that, and it's so strange. So if they do this puzzle thing again, maybe it will be more based on a board game rather than just using the ring and sliding mechanic. I don't know. I think that there is like a lot of ideas to be had there, but I don't necessarily think it's going to be the next thing is going to be origami. I'm sure they'll think of another paper thing. I don't want to start listing examples because I'm giving them ideas. But yeah.
I'm going to say something.
Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was pivoting the conversation. Go ahead.
I'm going to say something that might blow some minds.
All right.
I think combat is the least of Paper Mario's issues.
Woo! You heard it here, folks.
For me, my favorite thing about the series has always been kind of like the stories. Like, I'm not saying like there are these great stories here, but they have these really fun, interesting mysteries often. I just replay 1,000 Year Door, and my favorite chapters are the ones with the best mysteries, like Chapter 4, where with Twilight Town, or Chapter 3 in the Glitz Pit, or Chapter 6 when you're on the train. I think I loved all of that because there's a compelling narrative to push you through, and I don't even care if the battles, like, if 1,000 Year Door had Color Splash's combat engine, I would have still enjoyed it, So and to that point, while I enjoyed many of the settings in the Origami King, I found a lot of them lack that overarching narrative. Like, if you look at the first area, you have the Koopas in like the cult or religion or whatever, like trying to achieve salvation, right?
Yeah, that was funny, and I thought that was going to be the like theme of that chapter.
Yeah,
but that's not the case because they bring it back 3 more times.
Right, it's a pretty minor part of that chapter. Whereas I think it could have been something bigger, something to kind of pull you through. But there's really nothing to pull you through most of these chapters. Your drive is always to reach the end of the ribbon. Aside from that, there's not a whole lot else for the most part, which is something I think Color Splash actually did better, because you are often, even though it didn't have a single connected world, many of those chapters might as well have been, with how they interplayed with each other. And there's one thing I wanted to mention before that I haven't yet. One thing that the Origami King misses or lacks that really strikes at the heart of my issue: there's no haunted house level. There's no haunted chapter.
What's up with that?
Right? Those are always my favorite parts of the game. I love Twilight Town. I love the haunted house in Paper Mario 64. There's a haunted hotel in Color Splash. Even Sticker Star had a haunted house of sorts. Nothing in Origami King. The closest they got to was with the abandoned ship, the abandoned Peach ship.
Yeah.
Which didn't even have a mystery. You know, it wasn't haunted. It didn't have much of a mystery, and the resolution to it wasn't that exciting. So yeah, like I didn't have any single moment of this game that stood out by itself to the degree that chapters or levels did in previous games.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you, and it's very strange to me that like they have these really cool environments. Like I think that's one of my biggest positives was like just how elaborate these very strange areas are. Like you were saying, like this church for Koopas to go to. Like that's such a weird thing for these characters to exist in. But so like that's the hook. But then when you do that, like there's no real reason for it. Whereas like with the 1,000-Year Door, like you do have all these different vignettes in a way that tell a story, and most of them, like by and large, they don't really contribute to like the greater narrative of the 1,000-Year Door. Right. And I think that's perfectly fine. I think that they do not need to be a part of some greater story. It's not that deep of a game, but like you do kind of miss those smaller short stories where you are introduced to a smaller cast of characters for that area, and you can spend some time there. Whereas with this one, you know, I always felt like okay, why am I here? Like, I know I'm going towards the streamer, but like, why am I right here? Like, there's no actual like purpose for me to be in this area. It just kind of feels like it exists for you to just be doing things so that way you can be getting. It's weird.
Yeah, no, the streamers feel like they're basically like the stars from like Mario 64 or Mario Odyssey. Like it feels like they are just there to, you know, they're basically the MacGuffin of this game. You have to go find them in order to resolve the overall story. But yeah, there's no other there's no other reason for these areas to really exist other than to serve the purpose of these ribbons or streamers. And that's something that I miss in past games, where you had that fact still, where you're finding like the stars or whatever you're looking for, but there was always this smaller self-contained mystery. So it had like kind of two stories going at once. You had the broader one, the overall arching goal of the game, but then you have these smaller, as you said, vignettes that are arguably, I think, in many cases, more interesting than the overall story. Yeah. And that's what the Origami King misses out on. And even though I really did enjoy how this game resolves, I think the final portion of the game is great, maybe one of the best in Paper Mario history. Just every individual moment leading up to it feels lacking compared to the series past, minus Sticker Star, of course, but that game's just the worst at everything.
Yeah, no, I hear you on that, and it's interesting because, you know, this game it's also lacking a lot of characters that aren't generic. You know, it definitely has more Toads that are dressed up in this game, but by and large, it's still primarily Toad, and then you also run into several of Bowser's like minions, but like. In the past games, you know, you were introduced to a variety of characters that were all like based on the same, I guess, like enemy races from Bowser's army, but they were all like dressed up. They lived in these towns. They all had like, they felt like they existed there. Whereas in this one, like, I feel like the environments are I believe that these characters live in these environments. I don't think I really believe in these people because they just look like they could exist in any of these towns, which is just like the Professor Toad that you encounter in the desert. You know, I was like, after I kind of completed that area of the game, I was like, why did he not follow me to the next chapter? Like, there's not even a formal goodbye. He just does not get in the pipe with you. That's it. And it's just it's so strange to me. Like they're not really treated as characters.
Well, it's funny you say that. I totally agree. But it's especially funny in contrast to one specific partner character that definitely has a decided end.
Yes,
to their arc.
It's so weird. Like there's a definitive end to one of the characters, and then there's one that's like I'm just not feeling it, man. You know, it is very strange.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do really miss like having these like more interesting races to kind of inhabit these areas for sure.
Yeah, I think that's probably partially my issue too. Like, because there's no overarching, like, the areas, like the areas they look distinct enough, but they don't feel distinct, if that makes sense.
Yes.
You know, like there's nothing really engaging about the first mountain region you explore outside of the Koopa cult.
Right.
Or, you know, that goes even for the second mountain. I mean, you explore two mountain regions back to back, and they look very different. And they actually, I mean, they feel different, but they don't feel that engaging.
Yeah.
Although I will give credit to the second region. You do at least have the Ninja theme park there, which actually does feel quite a bit different. It actually is a unique setting, so I will give it credit for that.
But like the tower in the first area that you go to that has the colored pencils, like what is this tower? It's just the tower, right?
Yeah, it's just a tower.
There's a restaurant in there. Like what is the setting? where am I? Or the there's another tower in the ocean area where I'm like, this isn't a lighthouse, is it? Like, what is this building I'm in right now? Like, what? I don't know. I'm not looking for like deep lore. I'm just kind of trying to understand like what is this world.
You're kind of touching on something. Yeah, it's like now that we have a single connected world, it still doesn't feel all that connected. You know what I mean? In some parts it does. Like, I think the ocean is a natural extension of when you leave Toad Town, just I guess by its nature.
Right.
But yeah, like when I go to that first tower area, like I don't feel like, this is, you know, I walked here from Toad Town. I feel like, no, I'm in a whole different area, you know?
Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah, I mean, the game did a really good job initially. Like when you land in the woods and that leads to Toad Town, you see Toad Town in the distance. That's really cool.
Yeah, you walk through the forest. You go through like a little camping area. Like it leads through that area very well.
And it's especially weird because now that we have this connected world, but then you end up in the desert, which is somehow, spoilers, missing its sun. Even though the sun was fine elsewhere, and it still is if you go elsewhere. So that makes zero sense.
I'm confused. Why is the whole world? And yeah, you're right.
Yeah, it's weird because like these aren't things I was consciously aware of before, but I think they do matter to some degree, right? Like I don't need there to be purpose to these locations, but on the other hand, like it does add to the experience, you know, and there's just something missing compared to some past games.
I won't say what happens because this is a huge spoiler in the game. If you want to know spoilers, go check out our spoiler discussion on GameXplain. But with the whole sun aspect being missing, you know, like they could have had it be daytime throughout the game, and then when a certain plot point happens, the sun could have gone dark. That would have that artistically could have worked for the narrative, and then also have played up what happens next in the game. But instead, the sun's just always there, except for the one area where it's not. Yeah, and it's so strange.
That actually would have gone a long ways to making the world feel like, you know, more interconnected. You'd have the toads in town be like, "Yo, what happened to the sun?" Right?
Right. Yeah.
Like they could be freaking out about that, and that doesn't happen. So.
Yeah, it's very strange. And the other thing I want to talk about, you know, is there's kind of like, I don't know if this is still the elephant in the room, but you know, Alpha Dream. The company who made the Mario and Luigi games unfortunately went bankrupt, and I would imagine that the series is kind of on hiatus right now. I think that like for a period of time they had been talking about making a 3D game for the Switch, but I don't know if anything ever came out of that. So I believe you and Derek, I want to say, did an interview with Risa Tabata about the Paper Mario series and why it changed several years ago when Color Splash was coming out. Right. And the conversation really turned into, or I think that the answer was that because Mario and Luigi also exists, why would we have two different series competing against each other? Well, even if Alpha Dream still existed, you know, both of those games would they would be on the same system. So you'd have two Mario RPGs fighting for one system now, with the Switch being a handheld and a console system. So I don't know how far in advance Nintendo realized what was going on with Alpha Dream. I'm not gonna theorize on that or anything, but you wonder if the writing was on the wall, how if that has impacted the decision to add RPG elements to the Paper Mario series, if they'll go back and make another game in that style, or if they're going to give Mario and Luigi as an RPG to another series, or maybe that series will change. I think there's a lot of conversation to be had with that.
I have a solution.
Okay.
Paper Mario and Luigi.
Yes, that'd be great.
Right?
Yeah.
Mario and Luigi haven't really worked together aside from Super Paper Mario, if I remember correctly.
Well, Luigi has a role in this game, but you're right. Yeah.
Luigi,
they don't really work in tandem. Yeah.
So that's you kind of bring up a good point. Now that Mario and Luigi is possibly out of the picture, does that make it more permissible to make a more classic style Paper Mario?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know.
Maybe. Yeah. Likewise, it's kind of hard to say, other than we don't know. The optimist in me that wants that would say, yeah, totally. But again, I'll take what I can get.
I think totally is the attitude Nintendo had in making this game, with toads everywhere.
Totally, yes. Yeah, I don't know why they love toads so much. It's kind of weird because I won't get into spoilers, but the hatred of toads is kind of a theme in this game. So it's kind of interesting that they've really played into that. Yeah, I do wonder if Mario and Luigi will make a comeback in any way, because it has been a while since Paper Jam. That was the last actual game in that series. They did the 2 remakes on the 3DS, right. But yeah, it is kind of weird that we haven't seen something from that series in quite some time, and I wonder.
Yeah, I don't know either, but yeah, I am curious to know where this going to end up at. That's the kind of fun thing about Paper Mario. You never know what they're going to do next with the series. They're always surprising us, not necessarily in the best of ways for some people, but it's always interesting to see what they do. And I will say, since Sticker Star released, I have at least enjoyed both of the games since. Mm-hmm. So on some levels, I am curious to see what is going to be next, and whether they do adhere more to what Thousand Year Door did, or whether they kind of revert back to Color Splash, or they just do something else entirely again.
Yeah. Maybe this is me projecting this onto myself as a player, but I almost wonder if because I played Sticker Star and I disliked it so strongly, and there are similarities to Color Splash and Origami King, not to the degree of what you'd think, but there are elements that are the same. I almost wonder if I'm letting that bring my enjoyment of it down subconsciously in a way. I don't know. Maybe that's just me, but. Because again, I said in my preview, I think I would have really enjoyed this game more if I hadn't played the original game so much, because I liked that system. I know what people call them the Thousand Year Door fanboys, and the community becoming very toxic because of that. And I just I always say I'm down for the experimentation. I'm cool with it, with them trying new things. That's a core aspect of this franchise. But I understand the sentiment of liking that system, because I think it's been the best one that they've done so far. I wish they would have perfected the deck building system in Color Splash, and maybe they'll do something with this board game mechanic. I don't know, but
yeah, that's maybe the worst thing, is they seem to have these cool ideas, but they don't go as far as they could with them, right?
Right.
And do something really novel and possibly fun. But yeah, I agree. I also would I would like to see a return to the Thousand Year Door style, but at the same time, I also appreciate novel ideas too, as long as they're well executed. Although I will respect the effort regardless. I just like it. As with Sticker Star, as hard as that is to say, I respect they tried something new. I just hated the end result. But I think they can make another good Paper Mario. They can make another Paper Mario that isn't Thousand Year Door that's excellent in its own right. And I just wish that people would be more open to the idea, that some people would be more open to that, because it seems so many people are out there nope, it has no experience points, I'm out, I don't care. It's well, what if they entitled to something different, it's just because of the Paper Mario Association that you or largely
Yes.
because of that you think that. So
Right. They could make another game that has elements from the Thousand Year Door or in the original that have like, you don't have to have the partners, right? That would be really appreciated. I would like this world to be like we were talking about, less generic, and then feeling like it's seamless and connected, a bit more context to the environments that you're in, and not be an RPG. It does not have to be that. But again, until we get that, I'm not going to say that, I don't want to generalize and say people won't get that, but I feel like that's still going to be the greater conversation you see around this series.
It will probably never end.
Yeah, well, I'll see you in 4 years when we get the next Paper Mario game and there's another election going on. Seems to be like these two things are somehow connected for some reason. I don't know.
I'll be almost 40 then, dude. I don't even think about it.
Well, I'm sorry, man. I'll be approaching 30, so there's that.
Shut up.
Well, on that, thank you, Andre, for coming on to NWR TV and talking to us about the series and where we think it could be headed. And I've already said this, but like, where can people find you?
If you just type in GameXplain on Google, it'll take you to our channel. We do all kinds of Nintendo-based coverage, and other stuff too. We're primarily Nintendo, but we've been covering more Sony stuff recently. We're most known for our discussions and analysis videos, but we do tons of other stuff too, like reviews, previews, and discussions. I think I just said that. Things of this nature. So
he's running on 2 hours of sleep.
Yep, exactly. You hear more sleep-deprived Andre if you head over there.
All right, very cool. Well, thank you all very much. And if you want more Nintendo content, you can also check us out here at NWR TV and over at our website at nintendoworldreport.com. Andre, thank you very much, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was a lot of fun.
See ya.
This video is made possible by our generous supporters on Patreon. Did you know that Nintendo World Report is funded directly by fans like you? When you support Nintendo World Report on Patreon, you get immediate access to multiple exclusive podcasts every month, exclusive Discord channels, an early look at select content, and more, all for as little as $1 a month. Check out patreon.com/NWR for all the details.